Hey everyone, Connor here. We just want to take a moment to thank you so very much for tuning in and being a part of the Decon Chamber family. Your support keeps us going, and we couldn't do this without you.
And if you love what we do and want to help us even more, please consider joining us on Patreon. You'll get exclusive perks, behind-the-scenes content, and even opportunities to chat with us directly.
And don't forget to check out our awesome merch, because who doesn't want to rep their favorite podcast in style, baby?
Every little bit helps, I promise you. And we're really very, very grateful for all of you who make this show possible. So thanks for being there. And please enjoy this episode of the Decon Chamber.
No. The show has begun with Connor and Dom. It's the Decon Chamber.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Trekkies and Trekkers. Welcome back to another episode of the Decon Chamber. We are doing a watch party. Terra Nova, directed by LeVar Burton, who did several of ours in the series. This is the first one that he directs, and written
Out of
by
8.
What's that?
Out of 8, I know.
Out of 8.
Yes.
Written by Antoinette Stella, story by Rick and Brannon, and off we go.
It's
wait a minute. I am joined by my dear best friend in Los Angeles and co-host Dominic Keating.
You haven't got any other friends. There's a 6. Terra Nova, and it's I forget what it's got in the lexicon of Star Trek. It's one of like 15 episodes that had a Latin name. I think I read that somewhere. Oddly enough, this is Brannon's one of his least favorite episodes, which I would take umbrage at. Actually,
I would too.
I really enjoyed watching it, and I thought the whole episode. For those that have not seen it yet, watch it. It's about a colony of humans that went out some years before us. I didn't know, but in the sort of folklore of our storyline, there were a couple of other colonies that went out. Like there was New Berlin on Luna, and then what was the other one that I saw registered? I'd have to look that up now. But this is a group that went out on the USS Castanoga.
Yes.
And they arrive on this planet that is habitable. And quite early on, I think in their habitation, an asteroid hits the planet and starts to, create havoc with the
radiation rain.
And what happened? All the youngsters can survive that initial, because the radiation isn't desperate, but the older settlers definitely succumb.
They get radiation poisoning.
They get radiation poisoning, and so you're left with basically, it's kind of like an If story, isn't it? A bunch of kids looking after themselves and growing up, and ultimately deciding it's best to go underground to avoid the poison rain
and cover themselves in mud.
And being gutted, and they cover themselves in mud. Some lovely performances. Eric Avari, who is no stranger to Star Trek, playing Jarmin, I think his name is, and then an older lady, Mary Carver, who plays his daughter. His mother.
Yeah, his mother.
Nadette, and she was terrific too.
Quite good.
Anyway, I'm doing a lot of talking, but so
they do have they mentioned at some point, it doesn't really go anywhere, that the Vulcans had been involved in some way.
Yes,
there's a very small reference to
there is at the beginning, isn't there?
Yeah, that the Vulcans didn't help, and that really isn't explored. The one
is
thing
that in that mess hall scene that you have in the captain's dining room.
No, it's mentioned by them in the cave.
Ah. So anyway, it's a terrible distrust of humans in general now amongst the survivors,
Yeah.
and I think that any more human interaction with them is going to cause nothing but mayhem
Well, they don't seem to recognize what's a human and what's not.
and
And
they
they don't
don't know
know that
they
they
don't
are.
necessarily
They
know
don't
that
even
they're
know that
human.
they're human.
No.
Yeah.
There's a lot about the script I liked. I liked the sort of pidgin English Terra Novan talk.
Yeah.
Uh, that
Me broke leg under tree.
yeah, everything that they don't believe in is shale because that's
Yeah.
just worthless.
Right.
And the overgrounds, the gone befores. I liked that a lot.
I did too.
Their forefathers. Gutted.
I,
That's
I
being
got
gutted
it.
by the radiation. The elders were gutted. And there was a lot about the script I liked a lot. We
I'm
went out.
surprised at the reaction that you've heard
Yeah,
about
Brandon didn't
being one
like
of the
it.
least heard. And I'll say something about this episode because I don't really remember it. It's not one of the episodes
No, you're not in it that much.
I'm not. It was my days off. But
Yeah,
nonetheless, it really is holding pace with the absolute message of Star Trek.
I think so. Yeah,
It's our first opportunity to do that.
yeah. And because the lovely sort of fulcrum point is, Captain Archer wants to just pack them up and put them on the starship and take them back to Earth where they can assimilate back to being humans on planet Earth. And, a bit like sort of taking Native Americans to England and expecting them in the 18th century to sort of suddenly become, English people.
Right.
I mean, that's the message I took from this episode.
Was that a thing?
Uh,
Was that a thing?
oh yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, trying to assimilate Native Americans into American society. They took them off to boarding schools, the children, and trying to eradicate a culture. There is a culture there with the Terra Novans, and it
Yeah.
belongs
Yeah.
underground.
Oh, I
And
thought you meant. I think. Are you saying Southeast Asian Indians to
no,
England?
I'm not talking Native Americans.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did
I
not
mean,
know that they were talking about sending them over to England and assimilating
well,
them.
I mean, I maybe using that euphemistically, but yes, I
Ah,
mean, I believe some did come to England,
that wouldn't surprise me.
and were sort of, what's the word, wheeled around like, museum uh,
Pieces.
pieces, exactly.
Yeah.
And we do know that, the American culture was very keen on and in Canada, on re-educating the children in, these just dreadful boarding schools where the abuse was ghastly.
Yeah.
Taylor Sheridan's shows highlights that in which one is it? It's 1923, the one with Harrison Ford and Miss
Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren, yeah. And I know the actor that plays the head of the boarding school, Sebastian Roche, is he does a good mean person.
Yeah.
And he's the French priest that is tasked with, reintegrating these native children, mostly girls, and it's pretty gruesome. And that's the message I took away, and that we finally find a place at the end where the radiation on the planet is really negligible, if at all, and we
Right.
can locate them there, and they
Well, I
can.
also I also like the struggle. There's a good scene between Scott and Jolene about what to do with them,
Yeah,
and
that's the scene. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I like the questions that are asked of this episode. I thought it was a good episode of our show, to be honest.
I did too. I mean, it was nice shooting on location in Soledad Canyon, was where the outside shots were done. At is it
Oh,
something Rosa, Pola Rosa, Posa? I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it's in Soledad Canyon, up the 14 a bit, and beautiful days. I remember. I liked I did a bit of stunt there. Did you see me running down that hill after
Oh yeah.
after Steve Blaylock. That was Steve Blaylock.
I've never seen somebody jump across a log so
So
efficiently
deftly.
with such style.
Yeah. Good running.
Yeah.
I was quite glad. I thought it was good stuff.
Yeah.
I
I,
think
I
I could
thought
have
for a
run
moment,
a, huh?
I just thought for a moment, like, how many times did he have to run through that little pond, that little
Oh, a few times.
water?
And it was hot. I don't know if you
Yeah.
noticed, but my hair was quite Billy Idol.
No,
And
I thought for a minute, like, wow, because we were hair trek. It was all about the hair, and I thought,
mhm.
wow, they let Dom do his hair.
Yeah, yeah. No, it got hot and quite sort of sticky with the gel in. I remember. But yeah, very, very fun. And then, of course, we come back to that's Steve Blaylock, the stuntman was the one of the Novans that I was chasing, who we never really did. We ever get to the bottom of whether he was related to Jolene? I
No, I don't think he was.
I've got a fun. No, okay. I had a funny remembrance that they might have found out that they were cousins or something. But maybe I'm
Really?
making it up. I don't know. I'm. I'd have to. I'd have to find that. He was such a lovely guy.
Yeah,
And,
he was a fantastic guy.
and
Jolene's story is long and complicated, so I
a
don't
little
know.
bit. Yeah. I mean, we never quite knew where she. I think she came from the Midwest originally,
Right.
and then ended up in San Diego as quite a young girl and was
Yeah,
sort of taken in by another family. And I think she started a modeling career there. Anyway, we transgress. And then as soon as we crawl into the cave, suddenly we're on stage 9, Planet Hell.
Planet Hell. That was really
And
well done, I have to
yeah,
say.
very well done. I got to say, and those caves were fantastic, and much used through our series.
Oh yeah.
They come back again and again and again and again, but they were
Props to
great.
Herman Zimmerman
Yeah.
for his consistent work on our show.
Um, and John Eves, who sort of what's the word, dreamt it all up, as it were, on pen and paper. And then Jimmy Mees, who dressed it all, he did a great job. He's
Yeah.
passed, you know.
Yeah.
And but yeah, crawling through those dusty with that Fuller's Earth. I always remember that Fuller's that used to get everywhere, man. You go home,
Everywhere.
shower, and that stuff.
Blow your nose and you'd be
How did
like,
it get there?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But they were great, and yeah, I get shot by a projectile, which is some sort of old gun, isn't it?
Well, I think it was a gun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a gun, and
Yeah.
I'm left as a sort of tit for tat hostage, so that they can persuade Jamin and Nadette to go up to the ship, because it transpires that she is now dying of lung cancer, being so old that finally the radiation has got to her. I love that bit in Dr. Flux's. It was, and of course, that's easily cured these days.
I know.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Couple
oh,
of shots, and you did mention in your scene, you were like, "Is that a M21 or a
yes, that's right.
M22?" And he of course doesn't answer you, and then gives you
Gives me
uh,
some digger meat.
Dorothy's chicken.
Yeah, Dorothy's chicken, which I had to pretend was awful.
Yeah,
Uh, I like the fact that they basically live on those sort of armadillos that don't tunnel through the ground, diggers they call them.
right.
I loved all that language. I have to say, the overside, the underside. Uh, yeah, that's all shale, shale. Um, what else?
I think that I thought it was interesting. I always found our episodes, the most interesting episodes that we ever did, was when we struggled with something, and
hmm,
the captain was struggling mightily with one wanting to do the mission he set out to do, and then to have a conflict about one, you're injured and you're stuck in a cave, and two, about the ability to help someone who apparently at the moment doesn't want your help because they think
hmm,
you're an enemy.
hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that's I think there's a lot of ground to cover on that.
Yeah, a lot of drama, a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
agreed. And Eric Avari is such a lovely actor, isn't he? He played it beautifully. And so did Mary Carver as the mother.
Yeah, they were wonderful. Poor things. I kept wondering, when did they get into hair and makeup?
Yeah, really. I mean, they had a lot of Burning Man mud applied to them.
Yellow and blue lines on their faces, and
They look great, and Lavar's shots are fantastic. Very impressive that well that when the shuttle pod comes back and is sunk in a sinkhole and goes down 80 meters, and obviously whatever was underneath goes down with it. And one of the Novans, I think it's Akari, is caught underneath a tree trunk towards the end of the episode, and we have to. Scott decides to help Jarmin rescue him, and that was some good stuff. I know
yeah,
Vince Diedrich. That was the first time he licked his lips as the stunt coordinator.
yeah, right.
Oh, we got because they built quite a sinkhole. I mean, it was God, that's got to be 30 feet
That's no
at
joke.
least.
Now, you know that scene was basically lifted from Sometimes a Great Notion. Um, the Ken Kesey novel with and the movie has Henry Fonda,
Oh,
Paul Newman, and there's the scene with Paul Newman where he's trapped under a log and
yes,
his brother-in-law has to help him breathe.
that's right. I remember that now.
And the tide comes up, and then they start laughing at the fact that they're two guys kissing each other, and Paul Newman drowns.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, who wouldn't kiss Paul Newman, really? I mean,
Yeah, but I watched that and I was like, I see. There's a nod there. There's a
yeah.
nod there.
All right. And I didn't see that. And then the trust factor with Jarman giving the phase pistol back to Captain Archer so that he can cut the tree trunk in half with the
Mhm.
phase pistol. And
It
I
reminded
shot.
me of a story. It's the reason my father wound up leaving the Walla Walla State Penitentiary as a counselor.
Hmm.
There'd been a there'd been a what do you call it when the prison goes into disarray, and
Insurrection.
yeah, we'll call it that.
Yeah.
And some of the prisoners had gotten up to a watchtower, and my father, being my father, climbed up, and but to get into the watchtower, he had to have the help and be given a hand by the lead guy of the insurrection, and had to trust him to pull him into the watchtower so he could help stop this insurrection.
Negotiate
Negotiate. Yeah.
the come down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
And
literally the hand out, and if
yeah,
the
and
guy,
he had to have this guy's hand to help him get up there to talk to them.
and if he'd let him go, he might have fallen back into God knows what. And
Oh, he would
wow,
have died probably.
wow.
And my mother heard that story and was like, "You can't do this anymore."
Is that really he sort of quit the job after that, did he?
Yeah, I think shortly
Yeah.
after that, 'cause my mom was like, "No, no, this isn't a place for you. You're going to get yourself hurt."
That reminds me, I did the first of a trilogy of plays about the privatization of British prisons under Margaret Thatcher, and we were doing it in Manchester at the Library Theatre, and we were slated to go into Strangeways, which is the big prison up there. It's quite well known, sort of, British famous, as it were, to do a research day with some inmates and do some scenes in front of them to get a sense of whether we were, being authentic. Anyway, 2, 3 days before we were going to go in there and do this, Strangeways erupted, and there was a big insurrection. And they were all up on the roofs. And I'll never forget this. On the news, the mother of one of them was called in with a bullhorn or something to try and get her son to come off the roof. I just remember this guy shouting down, "But I'm the ringleader, Mom." And she goes, and the guy, she goes on the bullhorn. She goes, "Well, isn't that just like you, Paul?" That's a true story. I love that. I'm the ringleader, Mum. Anyway, we digress a bit. Yes, so I've got a bullet in my leg, and I'm being very stoic about it.
You really are.
I am. I have to say, Lavar shot me a couple of times. I'm like, oh, I look rather handsome. because you can get me at the wrong angle sometimes, and
All of us.
and some people are lucky. They're just, there's not an angle they can be shot at. They don't look gorgeous. But yeah, for the most part, I was like, oh yeah, he's the dude. And yeah,
I really like LeVar's direction. At least I had that experience with him. He directed several episodes that the storyline was heavy on Trip, and I always thought that LeVar was such a good director for actors in the
mm,
sense of like, what do you want to do?
mm,
And we can do it, but let's
hmm
talk about
mm,
it.
yeah,
And he always had something to say that elevated the scene in a way that at least I never recognized. And yeah, he and Marvin, I think, had a very good relationship in terms of director and director of photography. Uncle Marvin, what do you think? And
yeah,
Marvin, when Marvin was engaged in a scene, and as opposed to, and this is no knock on Mike Vehar knew every single shot that he was going to do,
right.
and it would
A
leave
dull
Marvin.
week for Marvin, just being
Yeah,
told to set up a camera.
you'd have the LA Times just sitting there.
Yeah, the pince nez would come on and the LA Times
Right.
would come
Yeah.
out. And strangely, it would take Billy hours to light something.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but when Marvin was working with LeVar in particular, also Alan Croker, I think a lot of directors who were interested in the collaborative element of
Hmm.
this, such a good director of photography, and when he was engaged, he was quite good. So this episode is, to my mind, it's really seamless in terms of how it's shot and the tone of what's going on, and that was a symbiosis, I think, with Marvin and LeVar.
I think we've covered this a little bit too. When I sat in the edit suite, learning how to sort of, piece it together. Um, I'm trying to think of the head guy, JP Farrell, said particularly of LeVar, he would only give you what he knew you could piece together the way he wanted it pieced together.
Right,
You wouldn't get the other shots, and so there was no option for you but to shoot it pretty much the way he storyboarded it, either in his head or on in his book.
right.
And he said he was quite. He said he looked at me. He said he's quite crafty like that.
And it's the episode that we it's the first time we get to see a fair amount of Anthony and
Yes.
how Mayweather feels about his role and the opportunity at the end of the episode, obviously, to write the report for
Yes.
Starfleet. And I don't know how many times Anthony was ever in the captain's mess room.
No, like one of. Well, I don't think I ever made the captain's dining room. I can't think of a time that I did. I used to get jealous watching the show and go when you guys were all in there. I was like, I think I should. He's the lieutenant. Yeah, I made the brig. Yeah, Section
And
31's coming on this weekend. I've got a funny feeling that who was the guy that was my he was lovely, Eric. He was my handler in our version of LeVar directed that one too. I think he might be in it. I'm not sure. It's Michelle Yeoh and
well, I was talking to Liz Krakowski
yeah,
in San Francisco, and
involved in
apparently,
it.
I think so, but I was talking to her about Section 31, the now movie of the week. It was intended to be a
It was
series.
going to be a series, and then
Yeah.
they curtailed it to a movie. Yeah.
Apparently there are several Easter eggs for Enterprise.
All right. Well, there should be.
Absolutely.
I know the young man who brought the idea to them, and I think he ended up being part of the writer room. And he's also involved in that new Sherlock Holmes Watson, which I
Oh,
think he
yeah.
really was actually one of the writers on. Yeah, I mean, I remember having dinner with him and his wife. This is, it's before the pandemic, so it's a long time ago. I met her doing a podcast with this buddy of mine, Sandra Minetti, who was doing the 10 best. And he did the 10 best Batmans, the 10, and so this was the 10, the best captains on Star Trek. and I got interviewed for that. And Ashley was the oracle about all things Star Trek. There was nothing this girl didn't know about Star Trek, and that's when she told me that her husband was involved in this, bringing Section 31 to the screen, maybe as a series. Would I be interested? And I'm like, sure. Anyway,
Yeah.
what's that, darling? Jason Inman, that's his name.
Hmm.
Jason Inman. Hi, Jason. I've got a prompter. And anyway, my name got brought up and shot down summarily like
Did it
that.
really?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah.
That's
So
too bad. I mean, and then,
I know.
look, I heard. Listen, I hope Section 31 is great. I have not heard good reviews of it.
No. Well,
I don't know if you heard the NPR. They do their, what is it,
I
Friday?
missed it actually. No, was that today?
No, it was last week.
Was it last week? Oh, they didn't. What did they say of it?
Well, basically,
Dominic Keating wasn't in it. It wasn't any good.
where's the origin of Section 31
David
and Dominic Keating?
completely missed the mark without Dominic Keating.
They basically said that it lacks the ethos of what Star Trek is, and that's been a criticism for a number of the shows that have come
Yeah.
as of late. And uh, I wonder about this.
Yeah, what do you think? I mean, see, here's the thing. I mean, Star Trek, I mean, a bit like NPR, a bit like KCRW. I have noticed the shift in the years I've been listening.
Yeah,
I am not their target audience anymore. You
right,
know, they've got me.
right, right.
And they're looking for the younger, generations.
I mean, you take the original series and then you give Next Generation there, and there's a level of growth, I guess, to or a consistency to what the message of Gene Roddenberry was, and then you continued on with DS9 and Voyager, which I think had sort of they were kind of going on around the same time, not
Mm.
exclusively, but. Um, and then our show comes around as the prequel to all of this, and there's still a legacy of sort of the Roddenberry ethos being like you know in lights on a wall,
Mm.
about how you're supposed to make our show. And then what we take, there's a what at least in television, there's a good 9 year.
It's 8 years, isn't it,
Is it
between
8 years?
Discovery? Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
you know you have J.J. Abrams putting out those movies, and those movies are very different from the ones that were Star Trek 1 through 5 or 6.
Oh, I think it's 12, apparently. I'm being sorry. 12 years. 12
Yeah.
years. Can you
Oh, that's
believe
what I
it?
thought. I thought it was 12 years. And
Yeah.
and I think that um Star Trek fans hold dearly this ethos, and maybe rightly so. But there's other ways to tell a story, and we've got elements of Section 31 is an element of Star Trek. It is a
Exactly.
particular thing.
And it's not exactly, and it's not Star Trek in its encompassment. It's not. It
Yeah,
is, as you
it's
say,
it's
it's a
like
separate chapter.
it's like time travel.
Yeah. Yeah. There you
You
go.
know,
That's not a
you know.
bad analogy.
It's almost as though Doctor Who showed up and was like, "Open this door."
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, I will watch it for its own merit, and hopefully it's good.
Yeah, okay, I'll have a look at it. Isn't there something else too? No, that's it. No, and I'm thinking of the Watson thing that Jason's done as well, which I'm quite interested in. Having interviewed Nick Meyer just now, I'm rather interested to see that too. So,
Is he part of that?
well, I know, no, he's not, but he's a huge Sherlock Holmes fan.
Oh,
So, I got more of I've never really read Sherlock Holmes. I didn't read him as a child, as a
I
young.
have the complete works in my shelf that has gathered dust for 15 years, but I'm curious to dive into it.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, having read Nick's new offering under the title of, I was like, wow. And then I went off and read the Zimmerman telegram by
Right.
your lady Barbara
Robert Tuckman.
Tuchman.
Yeah.
And I've got Guns of August and the Power Tower. Is it Power Tower? What is it? Proud Tower. And I'll do a swap. You can have the Zimmerman telegram, and I'll read the Crusades ones. Have you
Yeah.
got through that yet?
The Bible and the Sword. No, I'm almost done.
You
But
are.
I will say the Guns of August is her as far
That's
as I'm
her opus,
concerned.
is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
She's
Okay.
extraordinary. Those of you who are watching, if you've never read Barbara Tuchman, she is a writer of history like
She
no
wrote in
other
the
I've read.
60s. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that yeah. So she was writing quite soon after, certainly, well, no, she writes about the First World War, so it's not soon. I'm thinking of the second. Does she do any Second World War stuff? The first is a real thing, isn't it? I think.
It is
Yeah.
no, I even I think that maybe the Bible and the Sword is her first book. Uh,
Uh,
uh, I could be wrong about that, but it's very early in her career. I don't recall that she has a book about World War II.
no, I think she's an aficionado for the first,
There's a
which
Zimmerman
Great War.
telegram that you have read. There's that, and then
Yeah.
there's the one about the relationship with China.
Right. I'd like to,
Yeah,
yeah, no, wouldn't that be a
my
good read
mom's read
right
all of
now?
them.
Has she?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're dense. The Zimmerman is definitely, there's a lot of names you got to keep a handle on.
Oh,
And
Jesus. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, you look at the Bible and the sword and you're thinking, man, I should have read the Bible.
I mean, it's a merit of a good book when you're constantly reaching for the phone. And God bless that we've got them. And
Yeah,
Wikipediaing this name, that name, and it's amazing how many very informative rabbit holes one goes down if you are prepared to spend that time to do it, rather than just gloss over and go, yeah, well, I don't really
I
need.
have spent at different times a good half a day on Wikipedia,
Right, there you go.
going from
Yeah,
place to place to
it's
place to
good, isn't it?
reference
I mean,
to
I have to
reference.
say
Yeah.
it's very educational. We're very fortunate to have it. We
Yeah.
should, I don't know if you do, but donate to Wikipedia. It's well worth it. And that said, donate to the Decon Chamber. We are like Wikipedia.
That's right. That's exactly right.
We're ultimately a free service that we need your help with. So please think about becoming Patreon members for a small amount of money a month. You can really help us out, and we want to do this for a long time, and we need your help to do that.
Yeah, that's
That
true.
said, let's go back to Terra Nova.
Yes.
Uh, so apparently Stella, Antoinette Stella, she didn't make it past the first half of the first season. So Brandon must have disliked this script so much,
Yeah.
which I thought is rather unfair. I thought the script was great.
I did too.
I loved all the
Again,
digger speak. I thought it wasn't hokey. It
mm-mm.
was credible and um, if anything, poetic, I thought. And I thought the performance was lovely. I love that scene where Archer finds the old photograph of the original settlers, and there's Bernadette, who's now called Nadette, in
Yeah.
her mother's arms, Vera Fuller, and the dawning of the realization on Bernadette's older face that she is that little human girl
Right.
is really, it's a poignant, moving moment in the episode. And yeah, I really,
And we also get to see somewhat for the first time um, John Billingsley's Dr. Phlox
hmm,
fleshed out a little bit, and
yeah,
you see his he's such a good actor, and to see his choices and sort of nuances, and when he's walking in with that medical kit, and to get that medical kit back, and to be able to help to help Malcolm.
hmm.
Um, yeah, they sure got the right guy for that.
They did. There was one other guy I know they were very interested in, and he's quite well known. He went on to do that at our time. I remember meeting him in the hallway when I went for one of my first auditions, and I'm struggling to think what his name would be. He ended up, you'd know his face immediately. He's just one of those guys that's, gone from series to series. Good voice, good character actor, and yeah, I wonder how gutted but he went on to do. He got a top network show shortly after we got our a UPN
Like he
network.
wound up on Lost or something.
He wound up on, I want to say West Wing, but it wasn't West Wing. It might have been one of the early NCISs or
Oh,
something
there you
like
go.
that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He's one of those, there's about half a dozen of those guys.
Yeah, it's a coterie of fellas
It
who
really is.
yeah.
And yeah, I remember him being he was up for Phlox. He would have been a good Phlox, but John's got a sensibility about him, a a humanity, if you will, and it's shown out in his real life with his
Yeah.
work with the Hollywood Food Coalition.
He
There's
also has
a
a great Phlox also has a great sense of curiosity that John brought to the
yes, indeed. And funnily enough, it's the this is the first time we hear the word denobulin. Yes, it is.
Really?
In yeah, I was doing some reading, and and yeah, it's the first time we hear that he identifies himself as a denobulin, and yeah, and we all went, "What are they then?"
What's that mean? Um, I mean, again, ultimately, I was happy with but believe me, there are episodes in season one that I thought were just clunkers. I didn't think this was one of them.
No, me neither. I was quite surprised to read. I think Brannon brought it up when we did the 10-year reunion
Hmm.
at CBS for the Blu-ray. Yeah, it goes down as one of the top five clunkers in his mind's eye. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd argue in court against that.
I would too. There's another five I could probably pick pretty easily that
Yeah,
this is better than.
yeah, agreed. We missing anything? What do you think?
Um, I liked that we got to see a bit of Mayweather and
Yeah,
how he felt about his role. In the what is it? Even in the teaser, he's talking about, is it the teaser or one of the first scenes after the teaser where he's talking about how enthralled he is with his story. It's
yes.
it's almost like, the sort of lore that we have with
The other annals of human mystery stories, like
yeah.
Amelia Earhart and what are the other ones they bring up?
Well,
And
the
I
first one
think
he mentions, I don't know what that one was. But there's all these mystery stories, the untold story about what happened. That this is one of them, and his interest in it, and I think that when Archer gives him the opportunity to write the report up for Starfleet, I thought that was a nice tie,
yeah,
a nice bow at the end.
yeah, very much so. Yeah, but I think the major tenet of the piece is that we do help them out, and we do maintain the first directive, if you will,
Mhm.
and any idea that we could just hijack these people for their better good and plunk them down back on Earth is and it's to Paul, as you say, who says you can't just do that. They have a culture now that is to be protected, and we can do that on the other side of the planet. So yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. I thought it was a good message. I don't know why he was
Agreed.
so uppy about it.
Uh, but all in all, I thought it was a good. Now it's the fifth or sixth.
Sixth, I think officially. Yeah.
Sixth. I feel like we came out of the gate pretty strong.
No, indeed.
I
Yeah.
will say that if you're to watch an episode side by side with an episode in season four, you know, I can see us all working.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
good cohesion. And
yeah,
yeah, we really took to it like fish to water.
yeah,
And we've often said this about working on Star Trek. You need to be somewhat classically trained to sell it. It's you're selling a Shakespearean world in space,
it's
uh,
elevated.
and yeah, and then learning how to do that in front of a little black box rather than to a proscenium march with 700 people in it.
Right. And as we learned as we went along, one's ability to make that their own.
Yeah.
And that took a little time. I mean, I found myself, overacting a little bit in hindsight.
Yeah, me too.
But I did love that scene where you were asking about going to the bathroom.
Yeah, what does I say? And then I get turned down, don't I?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I'm like, well, suck it up then.
Okay.
Um,
Right.
but overall, no, I agree. Actors, sometimes, when it says, he's got a broken leg, and all you do is play the broken leg.
Right.
That's actually not the interesting part of the scene.
No,
Uh,
no.
and you have to sort of play the broken leg a bit like in England we call it the smike part in is it Nicholas Nickleby? He's got the limp and
Oh,
he's the cripple,
right.
and you can overplay the you can overplay the limp, and
Well, it's also like playing drunk. You can't
yeah,
play drunk. You have to play that you're trying not to be
try
drunk.
not to be drunk, which I
Yeah.
think we did very well in an episode coming up
Yeah.
to
Agreed.
screen near you.
Yeah.
Well, this has been very interesting. Good walk down the lane, and I think looking forward to the next one. What is the next one? Ah,
Oh,
an Andorian incident.
wow. One of the
Ducks
best
of the
of the best.
Andorians.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We meet Jeff Combs for the first
we
time.
finally meet Jeff Combs for the first time,
Yeah.
and yeah. Well, we'll look forward to that. Well, listen, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this watch party. And yeah, one more little plea to become a Patreon member, please. We really need your help. And
Yeah.
we know you love this. We've got great episodes coming. And I'll be going to the Saturn Awards, or will have gone to the Saturn Awards by the time you see this. And I won't be shy, let me tell you. So,
We'll see who we can get.
all right.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, y'all.